Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and to Rakesh Sharma, good morning to you. Nice to see you so cheerful and relaxed on a great Monday morning. So,
Morning.
Morning, Rakesh. Morning.
Your presence has a calming effect on me.
Well, the feeling is mutual. Thank you for that. So, Rakesh, as we begin on this day, the 25th of October, it's been an upheaval, the last 2 years. And what is your take, if I were to ask you as a key player in the two-wheeler industry, what's your take on the status of the industry as we talk now? We hear mixed reports.
Yeah, Murali, it is a very sort of good question to start off the week with, because, so many people, companies, organizations are dependent on this industry. And now, sometimes we get lost in just looking at what is happening here and now. If we take a bit of a long shot of the industry, the two-wheeler industry, we see that it had its peak in the financial year 18-19. And since then, for one reason or the other, the industry has been in decline. This is a very important aspect which sort of gets lost. Now, the issue is that this industry, our two-wheeler industry, is basically addresses the bottom half of the demand pyramid. It is the lower middle class and below tradesmen, craftsmen, self-employed people, farmers, waiters, bank clerks, and youth. These are the people who are constituting our demand. So it is in that sense a good indicator. They always say that automobile is a good indicator for any economy. I would say that two-wheeler is a good indicator of the bottom half of the demand pyramid, its health. And some of it, I think, is because we have brought it upon ourselves. It's not that the economy is in such distress, but, and of course, some of it is also because of COVID. But, the progressive increase in taxes and costs for various reasons, whether it is, slapping an ABS on a 150cc bike, or insurance premium going up, or the GST. And this has certainly dampened demand, because, the narrative usually which interfaces with the government from the automobile side is SIAM. And SIAM obviously is 65%, 70% four-wheelers. Now, in this period, the four-wheeler demand has behaved very differently. And I would say the fundamental demand price elasticity equation for a four-wheeler is very different from a two-wheeler. Because we have seen that the moment we increase price by even 2,000 rupees, we see a plunge in demand. And the narrative is largely, the government addresses, I think, the auto industry in one sweep. And in that, we get the two-wheelers get swept. And I think perhaps a differentiated view is required, because this is a very much an essential product. It is very much at the bottom end of the pyramid, and it is very much demand price elastic. And its revival, its growth has a multiplier effect on the livelihoods of people and obviously of the economy. So I would say that last 2 years, we have not painted ourselves in glory. And of course, the COVID situation has exaggerated it, but we should not blame it all on COVID. In the immediate term, we're trying to catch up with last year. The season is very important, the festive season. It has opened up, but it is not opened to it's not been a strong opening, Murali. And we have our fingers crossed. My personal opinion is that in the second half, season is like about 35 days. We're already done about 14, 15 days. And I feel in the second half, demand should pick up. But right now, demand is in the negative. So this is the long and short views of.
Oh, I see. Rakesh, for me to understand what you said in a larger context, is it therefore an indication that the entry level segment and rural India are really not back on track? But if you cited cars as an example. So if I extend the analogy to, let's say, premium motorcycles, does it mean that urban India and the premium segment in two-wheelers is booming? Is that what you're saying, that the core of the two-wheeler segment, which is entry level, where the core buyers are, is that the one that you would say is still languishing?
Yeah. So, Murali, there are 2, 3 points which you make, which I'll put my perspective on it. First is, you're absolutely right in making the call that the entry level segment is hurting far more. I mean, it has been hurting far more for some time. It is because, that is the place where also the retail financing companies are a bit more cautious, and justifiably so. So there is a double whammy also. Prices go up, incomes go down, retail financing becomes a little bit more difficult, and therefore that demand is definitely hit. The premium end, which is about 14-15% of motorcycles, has also been hit by the extra price burden on it because of ABS. But of late, as you know, it has been hit very, very severely by the shortage of semiconductors. So in the immediate numbers, which you will see, even if demand is returning, we are not able to service demand. And so the middle segment, which is the 125cc executive commuter, I would say that the demand is strongest there. So entry level because of economic woes, the top because of the semiconductor shortage, but in the middle we are seeing better segmental performance.
Wow. So there is, seriously, at one level, without sounding like a pessimist, things really don't look so great right now. Am I right? So therefore, what do you think are the remedial measures? You've spoken about excessive levies, and there's a section of industry that believes perhaps it's time to revisit the GST structure. So what is your take on what should be done?
See, of course, I'm in no position really to start lecturing on the economic side of it, because one does understand that the government is balancing many, many things, and it's got multiple competing demands on its limited resources, and they have their compulsions on addressing the GST, etc. But from the industry side, I can only say that on the balance, I would say that if there is a move to put more money in the pocket of the ordinary consumer, and that could be by some relief on the purchase side through taxes, or on their income side to income taxes, that would go a long way in building confidence. Because see, one great thing which has happened is that now this whole cloud of COVID is receding very fast, and as vaccination program progresses, people are again thinking that there is some kind of certainty. They might be still in a little bit of distress. All the jobs at the bottom end may not have come back, but at least there is optimism and there is, about the future, that things are going to improve. There's vaccination, and normalcy is returning. So it's perhaps the right time to give some kind of relief to the ordinary consumer, which will then manifest itself in spending, etc. On our side, this is not our call, but what do we do? So on our side, of course, we feel that the best way is to punch yourselves out of this issue by staying to our core of product innovation and giving a good balance of propositions to the customer, trying to create excitement in new categories at the super premium end. I hope that the semiconductor shortage will resolve itself. And of course, I think, for the industry, for the two-wheeler industry, the world, the marketplace, the global marketplace is a great opportunity, and Indian companies have been doing extremely well globally, and that's very, very helpful in bolstering up production and giving, demand to our vendors, etc. That adds a very significant piece, and I think India is progressing extremely well. And that's the other point, which I like, which I entertain in my mind, and that is, if we have a very strong and pulsating domestic industry, the international business sits on the shoulders of the domestic industry. And we are very fortunate that today we have the world's largest two-wheeler industry. So it is one of those industries globally where India, made in India, designed in India, can truly be a conquering force. It has the momentum, it has the recognition, it has the local depth and scale. So if we make investments in revitalizing, reigniting, and I don't think there are any, because demand is there, it's demographics is in our favor, and if the economy returns, COVID recedes, this could perhaps be a good time, both from a domestic and global perspective, to invest behind the industry.
I mean, specifically, what would you be suggesting? I mean, in terms of giving a fillip and some kind of a mojo to the industry too.
Yeah, I think obviously the GST recognizing that two-wheelers is different from four-wheelers, and recognizing some kind of a differentiated assistance to dropping the end price by relieving tax burden. And of course, what is also very helpful always is that if the self-employed and that segment gets a relief in the budget, and in that period, that kind of a thing, it puts more purchasing power in the pockets of people. People also feel happier than to buy an asset.
Right. You also, of course, Bajaj Autos walk the talk in international business, and yet I've heard you in the past, there are issues on container charges. And if we come back to the semiconductor issue, the reality of a global supply chain, and how long, I mean, I'm just curious, how long do you think this semiconductor issue will last? Because your sports segment is going to face the brunt of it, and people say the output could even be down by 50% over the next 2 to 3 months. So both on containers and semiconductors, I'd like to hear your point of view on that.
Yeah, it was looking like, when we were getting information from our vendors, it was looking like, it's going to be a month, and then certainty will appear, 2 months then. But, the way the last 4 months have gone and the narrative which we are getting, I think this issue is here to stay for some time, maybe a year or so. Yeah, I think we've got to be prepared. That's the way we are looking at it. But not that it is much of a consolation, but the consolation is that everybody is in it. Like,
I know
it's not that we are going to lose some competitive position. Everyone has to manage it. And what we are now looking at is to accept this situation and manage the front end. If there is if there is a product which can be sold without ABS and with ABS, where the burden on the semiconductor can be relieved, then try to move towards that kind of stuff. So I think we will manage that, but it is here to stay, and for some time at least. On the containers, again, it's a very serious issue. It is adding to working capital, because what used to take 30 days can now take anywhere between 45 to 90 days to reach.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, because sometimes there are very, very absurd routes which the shipping companies are deploying for whatever, because they're trying to maximize their profitability and utilization. No new capacities are coming upstream. There is a consolidation which has occurred in the shipping side. So it's 3 or 4 companies, giant companies, which are now controlling the freight movement. There has been, bottlenecks you must have read about US ports, etc. And now I'm thinking that with this new slew of measures which China has announced to ostensibly control some kind of a outbreak may just, choke to some extent the circulation of containers, etc. So I'm bracing myself up. But yeah, so I think costs, working capital, bit of uncertainty, a lot of management effort. These are the kind of consequences. Probably another 6 months or so before all the knots get undone.
Wow. Would you put a specific time even to semiconductors? You said in the in the future, but you think this shortage could even last 6 months to a year?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's definitely there for a year, and it may move a little bit here and there, plus and minus. But I think we should brace ourselves for some kind of interruption or the other will be there. So we have to be in our planning very agile. We have to take into account these kind of uncertainties when we are planning products and product variants, so that we can so there is a lot of short-term management which now the top management has to do. The whole horizon of managing is now reduced to a quarter and a month for even top management. So my point is that it's very, very difficult to understand when everything will be in equilibrium. We've always felt that another month and another month it will be. I'm saying it's better to bite the bullet and internalize this issue and say that it's going to be there for a year. If it resolves itself before that, fantastic. But let's brace ourselves for a year and put into place the right kind of countermeasures.
What does a company do in such a situation? Everything is volatile. In one of our previous interactions, you said increasing the role of a leadership team is more about response. And so in a situation where, like you said, China is seeing COVID cases, it could put a strain on the container industry. Now you have the semiconductor issue. Though, how do you put everything? I mean, it's such a awkward situation, isn't it?
Yeah, it becomes awkward, Murali, if you keep hankering for the past. I don't want to start sounding philosophical early on Monday morning, but essentially it is, with what philosophy you approach the issue. If you keep hankering that, I'm comparing all myself with what it was 1 year back and hoping that something will resolve, and we're just fighting an crisis or an emergency situation right now, then soon everything will be all right. Then it generates one kind of a management response. But if you say, yeah, okay, this is the new normal, and now I have to deal with it for 1 more year, then the kind of information flow, the kind of management response, the kind of teams which you set up, the kind of operating principles which you define on the basis of which to make a plan, to make product development choices, to make pricing, all those decisions, then they become different. And I think it relieves a lot of stress. So I think the first thing is to accept that this is the new normal and it's going to continue for some time. And if it doesn't, very good, because then we will be happier,
Well, in the midst of this, then you also have disruptions like electric, and you've had proclamations like why 80% of the two-wheeler industry should go electric by 2030. You have new kids, new disruptors on the block. You got your Chetak out, but equally, the industry has also spent substantial money on BS6. See, when you balance all that out in what I would say a difficult decade, what is your take on electric in terms of the priority?
Yeah, I think that the whole move into electric is fantastic. It's again, I would say, going to re-energize the industry. And when I say the industry, it's not just R&D, manufacturing, but even how the dealerships do business, what's the impact on the service, spare parts, the entire gamut. We are at a point of inflection. And it is a great time for those people who are ready to embrace change. And sometimes you need discontinuities to reinvent yourselves. Because what happens, Murali, in a company, in a large organization, there is momentum and there is a set way of working, set way of doing things. Those equations are in place. And then comes a discontinuity. And it's a great opportunity to reinvent the industry so that, we reconnect even more powerfully with the customer. And I would say, again, for India, it's a global opportunity. I think also, if you see, keeping aside this overall discussion on are we shifting everything from the tailpipe to the chimney pipe and it's a zero-sum game. I leave that to all the social scientists and environmental scientists. But given the assumption that it's a environmentally friendly move in the overall sense, even for our country, we spend a lot of money, dollars in importing oil, and hopefully through a combination of alternate energy, that burden on the economy can reduce, which again then goes into a very positive developments, infrastructure and all. So I would say at an overall level, the move to electric is very good, and it is full of new opportunity for people like us, both in India and overseas. The debate about its arrival and the speed of its arrival, I feel, is at the wrong end of the debate. People are constantly talking. I think it's very difficult for anybody to estimate next year or next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, what will be the percentage of the two-wheeler which will become electric. It's not an easy question to answer because there are many variables. There is a whole government subsidy angle to it. There is this whole, till the time we don't reach a critical mass, there is this whole thing about charging anxiety. A lot of people in urban areas live in apartments and they park their two-wheelers very far from where they reside, and there are no metering systems, etc. So I'm not saying it's a insurmountable issue, but till the time the issue is not overcome, it will impede the progression of the electric vehicles. But and then of course there is this whole thing about cost, which is largely driven by cell costs, the battery costs. So the battery costs, if you again take a 5-year scenario, they have been tumbling down. But again, because suddenly the demand is shooting up, supply comes on stream in discrete steps, but demand is increasing, continuously. So I think right now, because of the demand-supply imbalance, semiconductor issue, there has been a sort of a halting in the downward trend of the battery costs and prices, which means that the electric two-wheeler is still very, very expensive.
Yes.
And of course, the government's thinking is that they will have, we get 45,000 rupees as subsidy in Maharashtra. You got another 25 plus another 15 for a limited period. It's a substantial amount of money to give to the customer. And again, the intention is great that let's create a bridge, let's accelerate the transition to electric, and let's support this transition by plugging in this gap, through subsidy. But if the battery costs don't come down, if let's say we have another 1 year or 2 years of very, very, less decline in the battery cost, then how will the subsidy pan out? And if the subsidy is withdrawn, what will happen to the demand? And if the demand doesn't grow, then what will happen to all the investments which the companies are going to be making? So it's not an easy question. I think none of us, thanks to Tesla, what Tesla has shown in the four-wheeler world, I don't think any of us in the industry, I can speak, I'm sure I can speak for my colleagues in the industry. I don't think any of us are going to have a Kodak moment that no, the electric is not going to come and it's all cry wolf and that kind of stuff. I think everyone is preparing. And everyone knows that this storm is somewhere in the Pacific and it's going to make landfall soon. But exactly when and how, we don't know. The issue why people like us are taking a step-by-step approach to it, building capability and all that, is because of the factors which I mentioned earlier about how this. At the end of the day, today, if one regards the inner cities of Europe, the cities of Europe, and sees what kind of electrification has happened over there. Of course, the prevalence of two-wheelers in any case is less. However, there is a huge thrust by the government, by the local city councils to go green and all that. And there's a lot of support. And over there also, the electric penetration is 4 to 6% only. So the bottom line is I'm saying that of course it is here to stay. Of course it is a discontinuity, and in that lies an opportunity. But the management have to calibrate their investments and their capability building and their expectations to this fundamental thing. Some artificial advancement will be there through subsidies, etc. But ultimately, sometimes the subsidies will come off. I mean, look at what happened to Nissan Leaf. It was rocketing. And when the states like Georgia pulled out the subsidies, it is tanked. So one has that eye on. On our part, we are absolutely convinced it is a good opportunity. And what we feel that it's not going to happen in 1, 2 or 3 year time period. It's going to take time. So we better prepare ourselves for the long haul. And in the long haul, it's the basics, how we deal with the customer, what kind of proposition we give to the customer, what kind of R&D, manufacturing, service capabilities we have. Those are the things which will help us win. And so let's invest behind those.
So the Chetak will continue, in terms of you'll continue to push the Chetak aggressively, pan-India, in the coming months and years.
Oh, absolutely. We will. We have also set up a 100% subsidiary, which we will be sort of fleshing out and equipping just for driving our electric business. We are very sensitive to the fact that that we are on the threshold of a great discontinuity and an opportunity, and we have to. It's almost like a new business. Our only point of difference comes from some players is that we are not looking at it volumetrically right now. We are paranoid, but not paranoid about volumes. We are paranoid about capability. That we must have the capability to do. And you can see, look at the whole supply chain thing. We've got a full order book. We had plans to enter far more cities than what we have done today. But because supply chain is not getting managed, because of the various extraneous factors I told you about, it's difficult to, start to plan a very big engagement with the customers, because gone are the days where customers would be, very happy to be on a waiting list. And right now they get cheesed off. So we're trying to strike the balance between, occupying some kind of a mind share with customers, but keeping a not too big a order book, and walk that tightrope. And by the end of the year, we're right now in 9 cities, go to 19 cities, 30 cities, and occupy that mind share, build capability. That's a broad construct.
Good to know. I think we have time for another question. It's almost there, but on a happier note, in the backdrop of what I call a rather somber outlook of the industry, and rightly so, on a happier note for your company, it's 20 years of the Pulsar. So that must be cause for cheer for you.
Yes, of course. Pulsar was launched actually on 28 October 2001. And you have to just consider the fact that at that time, they were all 100cc bikes, which were all mileage oriented, and Pulsar came and redefined the market. And we are having a new launch for a new Pulsar again on 28th October, which is 20 years onwards. And we are very, very optimistic about it. But I would just like to end that, fundamentally, whether it's dealers, mechanics, spare parts, companies, we're fundamentally in a very good industry because it's a large industry and it is still underpenetrated, according to me. And I mean, if you compare, economies in ASEAN and all that, and as all this retail financing moves, basis Aadhaar card, and some fantastic work happening in the fintech area, which is making credit available to ordinary people in many, many different ways. As that sort of rolls on, and people's need for mobility is growing exponentially. It's growing exponentially. So fundamentally, I think it's one of the best industries for business people to be in. It's this 2-3 year period, and this little bit of constipated things which have happened, which have not let demand flow in its natural form and find its level. Hopefully, we will get that right. Things will start flowing, and industry will be much bigger than what it is today. So from a forward view, because again, the things which I said, I would say that it's a great place to be in, and we should embrace the change. We should leverage all types of digital technologies, give the customer a great experience around the product, the youthful customer around with the product and the services wrapped around the product. And I think we have a good decade to look at.
Lovely to hear that, Rakesh. It's always wonderful. I mean, to end on a note of absolute optimism and buoyancy. Thank you, as always, for your time. It was a pleasure, and congratulations and best wishes on the Pulsar's milestone. I guess a whole lot of us will be looking forward to that on the 28th.